Howdy, y'all. This is Mr. Gonzalez, and it's time to start discussing the arrival of Europeans in the Americas. When we talk about European exploration in North and South America, we always begin with the Spanish. The Spanish were the first to explore and conquer large parts of North America. They were the first to establish permanent settlements in North America. So that is what we're going to be looking at today. This couple is King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain, and they are very important in the story of the Spanish conquest of the Americas. Before they were King and Queen of Spain, Ferdinand was prince of a kingdom known as Aragon, and Isabella was princess of the kingdom of Castile. And in 1469, they married and united their kingdom into what would eventually become the nation of Spain. So they're very important to the history of Spain. They essentially formed the modern Spanish nation. Another event that we need to talk about that is important in the history of the Spanish conquest of the Americas is the Reconquista, which, if you translate that into English, means reconquest. So who exactly is conquering what and who is reconquering it? If you look at the bottom of this map, you'll notice the northernmost part of Africa. And in the year 711 AD, Muslims from North Africa, known as the Moors, invaded the area that would become the nations of Spain and Portugal. If you put these two nations together, this area is known as the Iberian Peninsula. So, Muslims, or Moors, as we'll call them, invaded the Iberian Peninsula. They even made it into parts of France before they were stopped by a Christian army. And slowly but surely, Christian forces slowly reconquered the Iberian Peninsula. This yellow area had been reconquered by the year 1000. This large orange area had been reconquered, or was reconquered between the years 1001 and 1250. And the final southernmost part that is shaded red was reconquered between the years 1251 and 1492. By the time Ferdinand and Isabella became King and Queen of Spain, the only city that had not been reconquered was, or the only area that had not been reconquered was the area around the city of Granada. And so it was under their reign that the final portion of the Iberian Peninsula was recaptured by Christian forces. Now, why is this important to the history of North America? Well, for one, the Moors, the Muslims, were expert horsemen. So to fight the Moors, the Christians had to also learn how to become expert horsemen. And this is something that would help them once they got to North America. Also, this is a religious war. The Muslims, the Moors, were fighting to spread Islam. So the Christians who were fighting back became almost fanatical in their defense of Christianity. They were not just fighting to reclaim their territory. They were fighting to defend their religion. They were fighting in the name of their God. So this turned the Spanish people into serious, serious Catholics. And this is also something that they would take with them to the Americas. Now, while the Spanish were working on driving the last Muslims out of Spain, a sailor from Genoa, Italy, was hanging out at the court of Ferdinand and Isabella. He had been waiting for 5 years for a meeting with the king and queen, and his name was Christopher Columbus. Now, Christopher Columbus had a rather strange idea. Think back for just a moment to last lesson. So, Europeans really started exploring during this time period because they were trying to get to East Asia, places like China and the East Indies. They were interested in the goods that were coming from this area, such as spices, silks, and porcelains. Now, the Portuguese, which, as you saw in the previous map, are neighbors to the Spanish, had already figured out a way to get to Asia by sailing around Africa. They had accomplished this by the late 1480s and into the 1490s. Columbus has a new idea. He thinks if I sail west, I will eventually make it around the world and end up here in Asia. There's a couple of problems with this plan. One, he does not realize that North and South America are in his path. He doesn't realize that there's this huge landmass that's going to block his route from Europe to Asia. And secondly, he miscalculates the size of the world. He thinks the world is much smaller than it actually is. But he takes this idea to the leaders of England, he goes to France, he goes to Portugal, and in each place that he goes, they turn him down. No one is willing to give him money to try out this plan. He goes to Spain as a last resort, and he hangs out at the king and queen's court for about 5 years before they finally agree to see him. He pitches his idea, and they shoot it down. They tell him, no, we don't think this is going to work. He leaves the court. He's riding away, and suddenly a messenger comes looking for him and tells him that the king and queen have changed their mind. So they agree to sponsor this voyage. And with the money that he's able to secure, with the help of their sponsorship, he's able to get hold of 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. And in August of 1492, he sails west. And on the morning of October 12th, one of his lookouts spots land. Now, very quickly, Columbus had offered a reward to any member of his crew that spotted land first. And the lookout who actually sees land is a man by the name of Rodrigo de Triana. This statue of him stands in the Spanish city of Sevilla, which is the city that most of the Spanish expeditions to North America left from. Columbus decided he did not want to pay out this reward, so he later claimed that the night before De Triana spotted land, he had noticed a light in the distance. And so it was he, and not Rodrigo de Triana, that had actually spotted land first. That kind of gives you an idea of what kind of person Christopher Columbus was. Very brave, no doubt, but a little on the selfish side, and as we'll see as we go on, a little on the violent side as well. So during his first voyage, Columbus lands first in the Bahamas and later explores Cuba. The people that he encounters, he calls Indians because he thinks he is in the East Indies. He has no idea that he has just discovered a new continent that nobody in Europe knew about. He also notices that the people have technology that is far inferior to his. They're armed with wooden spears. He has guns. So he goes back to Europe and he reports that the people there will be easy to conquer. He comes back in 1493 with 17 ships and around 1,200 colonists. And he begins the conquest of the island of Hispaniola. His soldiers kill, massacre hundreds, probably thousands of the natives that lived on the island. And the ones that did survive, he forced to work in the gold mines that they discovered there. And they were required to bring him a certain amount of gold each week or each month, I'm not certain. And if they failed to do this, if they didn't meet their quota, he'd have their hands cut off. So, like I said, he's definitely an important figure, but not the most admirable figure in the world either. Columbus eventually made 4 voyages, and he eventually died in Europe in the year 1506, still refusing to believe that he had not reached Asia. He went to his grave convinced that he had reached Asia, not this new continent that people were starting to claim. This is a map that was drawn in 1507 by a German map maker. Now, by this point, another Italian sailor who was working for the Portuguese had sailed to South America. This guy's name was Amerigo Vespucci. And Vespucci made it far enough south along the South American coast that he realized that he was too far south for this to be China. This had to be some new territory that they had never seen or discovered before. And so he returned to Europe and reported that what Columbus had found was not Asia. It was a mundus novus, a new world. So in 1507, this German map maker creates this new map, and as you can see, he actually includes these 2 new continents. Now, you can tell that nobody was real sure what these new continents looked like. I mean, I feel like a 4-year-old could draw a better North and South America than this. But this is the first map to actually include the 2 new continents. And the map maker named these continents America after Amerigo Vespucci. He could have named them Columbia after Christopher Columbus, but instead he named them America.